Okay, YouTube, we're back at the Evo Sporty. Got most of the stuff fabbed up. Meant to do a seat thing earlier. It's still not final welded yet, but here's the seat. Still got to make the rear tab. Haven't had a chance to do that. We just got busy with a ton of other stuff, but it does come up, pivot, gives access to the oil and dipstick tube, so that's all done. The brackets I made originally were supposed to be tucked down here. Didn't clear, so I had to kick them higher up in the frame to be able to get a bolt through there. But that's fine. I'll finish weld all this up once I get the motor out here in the next day or two. Then we're on to the battery. This is the factory battery. On the hardtail, it doesn't have a place to go, so we're going to run an anti-gravity, super tiny, super light, right down in here. But in order to do that, we're going to make an actual box for it instead of just leaving it exposed and sloppy. So found a stick of metal over there on the wall, so we're going to use that metal, start cutting it down, shaping this up, and fabbing up a box for the anti-gravity. Alright, so scrap piece of steel you had laying around. This is how we're starting. Going to the end, laid the battery down, just traced a quick little template there. I'm going to trim this down first, and then we can start figuring out exactly how to shape the rest. I did go ahead and grab measurements of everything I need, so I got a quick reference on the table. But we'll start cutting away and see where this goes. Alright, so I'm going to start with the base on this. I know this one's a little rounded. I'm not going to be making rounded cuts on here. It will be a rectangular box. So, there's our base. Take this to the belt sander real quick. Just knocked off the sharp edges on the corners so I don't cut myself working with it. It's a little warm, but now I'll grab the battery and make sure that this actually fits. Perfect. Got a little bit of a gap at the bottom, but that's fine. I did oversize, obviously when I Sharpied this, I Sharpied around the outside diameter of the battery, which should actually leave me enough room if I want to make it real tight, but I'm actually the pieces I cut are going to get connected on the outside, not on the inside. And I'll explain that a little bit more in detail when we get to it, but let me rip this edge off. There's our base plate. Fit on there just like so. Now I get to move on to the sides. Terrible at filming today because I'm in the middle of trying to get this done real quick. Here's the base plate, here's the battery. This will fit right on here like so. And essentially we just need to make a box around it. So take a couple of my quick measurements and then trace this out on that panel and try and use this the best I can without wasting a bunch of space. Alright, so I just traced this out on the ground. I took the battery with an anti-gravity. You can use them both ways. Lay this down, set it here, inset it just a hair, trace the top here. This is what we're cutting. This is what we're going to use. This is going to be our side. I'm going to need 2 of them. One. Now I'm just going to flip this over and use this as a template. Alright, so here's the base. Typically what I like to do is just do a quick label. We're going to have a bunch of pieces all pretty similar in size at the end of this. Come over here. Here's those 2 pieces I was just telling you about. For the sides, I usually like to do here, I'm just going to rough template it, and then I'm going to do, I don't remember which video, that making brackets or something video, where I clamp the 2 of them together. Once they are clamped together, you can use one as a template for the other one. these. Now I got two sides. Like I said, I used one to trace the other, so they're not going to be exactly perfect when you're cutting everything from scratch, but they're going to be really close. And I'll take these, set them together, and verify fitment on the belt sander. So this one side is just a hair longer, so I'm going to take this with a flat disc on the angle grinder and clean that up. But other than that, pretty much exactly the same. I go through a lot of batteries today doing this. Alright, two sides of the battery tray perfectly square. Just about. Now two sides of the battery box that are perfectly squared up. Like I said, sometimes I like to label these. I'll do that if I can find my Sharpie that I've lost 8 times today. Never mind, we'll just leave those together. So these are our sides. So basically, on this line that I've started cutting, I'm going to maintain that just so they're all the same height on the cuts. Technically, I could use a little bit less material if I go this way, but then I'm kind of altering the standard height that I've got going on for everything else. I think what we're going to do is lay this battery out here, do another quick trace. It's not the most efficient way to do this in terms of metal, but it's not like we had to go out and buy this piece anyway. It's just stuff we had laying around. So that's going to stay just like that. Let me switch out the grinder again. Get the cutting disc on. I recommend having a grinder for each of them. I haven't done that yet. I got one I got to put back together, but we'll do that later. Alright, switch my grinder finally. Oh, right through my shirt. Justice, you owe me a shirt! There you have it, 2 more brackets. Now we're going to clean these up, trim these down, pretty much make them exactly the same, and then we'll start fabbing up the box. Alright, when you go to square these up, what I do is trace that. I leave the uncut edge just because that's the truest area that I have. And then basically true up the other 3 sides around that. And this is the worst of them. We'll do it the slow way. So when you're using a grinder, this could alter it and change it a little bit, but what I like to try and do is get the grinder marks on the actual steel to be as close to uniform as possible. Like here, I hit this side a little bit harder of an angle than that side. You want to try and avoid that, keep it flat. But with a flap disc, especially an old flap disc like I'm using, it's pretty worn out. And as long as it's close, I mean, it's all going to get welded. I can kind of tweak and fix things as need be when we get to that part. So let me let this cool off a little bit, and then we'll start slapping it together. Alright, part's cooled off. All I did was take some 90-degree magnets. So this is the base. I got labeled. Here's the back side. Front side's pretty much exactly the same. That's going to go out here. Took two 90-degree magnets, kind of laid them out, and get the slight little edge we got here. I'm squaring up the outside to the base instead of kicking them up and insetting them, just to get a little bit more clearance on the battery box. But now I can start tacking a couple things on here. Our sides are going to go here. Get one 90-degree set up first. Throw a couple tacks on there and then start slapping the rest of them together. I'll do base and the back, get these welded. Then I'll probably end up going to a side, then the other side, then the face. It's going to get harder and harder to weld in here the more I actually close off. So right now I can get to this back corner. If I started on the side, then the next one, and then the next one, and then this, by the time you're done, I can't really get in there with the TIG torch. I can do it on the outside, but we'll see what happens. Just doing a bunch of spot and MIG welding on that sheet metal stuff in the back today, so got to put long sleeves on. I'm already sunburnt. This is definitely not going to help it anymore. I'll be feeling this tomorrow. Okay, 2 tacks on there. I'd like to get one more in. Fighting all sorts of issues there. Blow this magnet off. This is the problem I was having. Alright, so on this, I'm insetting this outer panel on the inside of this back one and on the top side of this one. Should be fine. Don't need any filler for this to tack it. Through there. I'll just square this one up, make sure it's square. Same thing on the bottom. Should not need any filler here. Get around it doing the final welds I might, but I'm going to let this cool and then fit the battery, make sure we're still on. Everything's fitting right before I weld up any more sides. Alright, so in the course of doing the battery box yesterday, we did a quick redesign. I ended up flipping some stuff around, used the base as the front, welded this in. Instead of doing a solid box, we left a little gap for rain, since he actually does ride this thing and it sits in the rain. Didn't want water collecting in the bottom of this tray and rusting it out, so battery tray fits this way. These anti-gravities, it's nice because you can run them pretty much any direction. You can leave them this way, you can turn them sideways, upside down, it really doesn't matter where they're oriented, but we got everything rough tacked in. So I'm going to finish weld this, and we're going to trim this down after it's welded, and then go about putting this in. Battery tray's all finished welded. I'm going to hit this a little bit. I know it's TIG welded. It doesn't really need to be ground down, but we'll clean this up a little bit, trim down these excess panels. But this snug battery tray. Weld some tabs on the side here for whatever we're going to do. Once we cut this section off, we'll put some tabs here and on the back side so we can run a strap across to make sure it stays in place. But there it is. Alright, so the battery box is done. I left this long because I'm not sure exactly what we're doing for the mounting strap yet, but got it all dressed. Got a nice little vent area in the back. TIG welded and then shaped everything down just to make it a nice clean box. Slips in really nice. Just a matter of making the strap now and figuring out how we're going to actually mount this in the bike. Alright, so we're working on the Evo Sporty, the battery tray. There's a time lapse of doing that and the redesign on that. Like I said, I left this top tab long. Welded a piece in the bottom here, in between the fender rails, because we're going to sink it down in between the frame. So that rear one's basically just going to be a support mount. I'm going to finish weld that one once I get it out of the bike, but this is going to sit down in here. Then we'll do the strap across or a bolt down. I haven't decided that yet. For the front, essentially the battery tray is going to sit on this as a stationary pivot. And then on the front side here, we're going to weld up 2 brackets, and then I'm going to drop 2 bolts through the battery tray, some flathead bolts, or stainless button heads, so those will go down through, sorry about the compressor noise, but those will drop down through the battery tray and bolt down into the brackets, which I have sitting over here. There's too much crap in my way today. Basically cut angle brackets here to match the frame, so it'll come out straight and sit in here. Maybe if I hold it underneath it'll show up a little bit better. But these will get welded in here like this, so it'll stay parallel. It follows the curvature of the frame. And then the battery tray will essentially sit here. I'll shift this over. Battery tray is going to sit there. This bracket will sit underneath here like so. Drill holes, drop bolts down through the battery, and then it'll have a nice bolt-in stationary spot. I might throw 1 bolt through that back side as well. But that's where we're at.